I never thought I'd be posting this anywhere, but my hands are literally shaking as I type this. 4 days ago, my phone blew up with messages from the woman who gave birth to me, but doesn't deserve to be called mom. After 9 years of complete silence, she's suddenly flooding my phone, begging for help. Well, karma's a bitch and so is she. Let me take you back. I was 14. My sister Leah was 11. Normal Tuesday morning. I'm getting ready for school. And mom bursts into my room at 6 a.m. She's all hyped up, talking fast, eyes wild. Get your stuff? We're moving right now. Don't ask questions. Just pack what fits in your backpack. I thought maybe we were behind on rent again or something. This wasn't the first time we'd moved suddenly, but usually we at least had a day's notice. Leah was confused as hell, but I told her to just do what mom said. We each grabbed some clothes. I snagged my Game Boy. Ancient tech even back then. And the $43 I had saved from mowing lawns. Mom was rushing us, kept checking her phone, wouldn't answer any questions. She threw some stuff in a duffel bag, grabbed her purse, and practically pushed us into her crappy blue Pontiac Grand Am. That car smelled like cigarettes and cheap perfume, and the heat barely worked. I remember because Leah was shivering the whole drive. 7 hours. 7 fucking hours we drove, crossed 2 state lines. Leah kept asking where we were going when we'd get there. Mom just kept saying we needed a fresh start. Things would be better soon. She stopped once for gas and bought us each a sandwich and some chips. I knew something was seriously wrong when she let us get sodas, too. She never spent extra money on that kind of stuff. We finally pull up to this absolute shithole motel on the edge of a city I'd never been to. The sign said weekly rates, but half the letters were burned out. Mom goes to the office while we wait in the car. Comes back with a key. Drives around to room 118 at the very back of the building. Tells us to bring our stuff inside. The room. God, I can still smell it. Mildew, cigarettes, and something else. Something rotting. 2 beds with stained sheets. Carpet so filthy it crunched under our shoes. Bathroom had black mold everywhere. And the tub was this nasty yellow color. There was an actual fucking blood stain on the wall by the TV. Leah started crying immediately. Mom throws our backpacks on the bed, then tosses $200 in cash on top. Just like that, she says, "We're adults now and need to figure it out." Says she's done wasting her youth on us. She's crying, but also seems weirdly excited. Like she's been planning this for a while and is finally free. Leah grabs her arm, begging her not to leave us here. Mom yanks away so hard. Leah falls back onto the bed. I'm just standing there, brain not processing what's happening. Mom heads for the door and I finally snap out of it. I yell at her. Ask what the fuck she thinks she's doing. She doesn't even look back, just says, "There's a note in your bag. Don't try to find me." Then she's gone. Peels out of the parking lot in that shitty Pontiac. Leah runs to the window sobbing, watching the only parent we've ever known drive away without even looking in the rear view. The motel owner comes by about 20 minutes later. Fat guy with greasy hair and yellow teeth. Smirking as he tells us mom paid for 5 days. And after that, we're on the street. Then he looks at Leah a little too long before walking away. I immediately put the chain on the door. I found the note in my backpack, handwritten on the back of a gas station receipt. Your father's doing 25 to life. I'm not wasting my youth on you too. New life, new me. Forget I exist. That's it. No phone numbers, no relatives to call, no explanation of where the hell we were or why Dad was in prison. We didn't even know his last name was different from ours until years later. Mom had always told us he left before I was born. That first night was hell. The people next door were screaming at each other for hours. Someone tried our door handle around midnight. I put the dresser in front of the door and stayed awake all night while Leah cried herself to sleep. In the morning, I found needles under the bed when I was looking for my shoes. Leah kept asking when Mom was coming back. I told her she would even though I knew it was bullshit. What else could I say to my little sister? I was terrified, but trying to act like I had a plan. On day 2, I walked around looking for work. We needed money. No one would hire a 14-year-old, obviously. On day 3, I found a small restaurant about half a mile from the motel. The owner was this old guy named Frank, who took pity on me when I told him we needed food for my sick mom. He let me wash dishes for $4 an hour under the table. I worked 10 hours that first day, came back with $40 in takeout food that was going to get thrown out. Day 6, the manager banged on our door. Money or streets, he said. I paid for 3 more days with what I'd earned. We were officially on our own in a city where nobody knew our names. I won't bore you with every detail of those first few months. It fucking sucked. I worked as much as I could. We lived in that same Roach motel for almost 3 months before we got found out by some teacher who realized Leah wasn't enrolled in school. Social services got involved. We bounced between 3 different foster homes in 2 years. I ran away twice when they tried to separate us. Fought like hell to stay together. Leah sat by windows for months watching for Mom's car. Every time a blue sedan drove by, she'd perk up, then collapse all over again. The light in her eyes just died. She had nightmares almost every night. I'd wake up to her crying, asking why Mom left us, what we did wrong. I worked my ass off through high school. Got my GED early so I could work full-time. Found us an apartment when I turned 18 so we could get out of the system. Leah's in college now. Psychology major. She wants to help kids like us. I'm so fucking proud of her. It hurts. All these years, not a word from our mother. No birthday cards, no child support, no Christmas calls, nothing. We looked her up once, found out she'd moved to Florida, got married to some guy with money. We didn't reach out. What was the point? Then 4 days ago, my phone starts blowing up. Unknown number. First text. Liam, is this you? It's your mother. Then 50 more messages getting more desperate. Please God, answer me. Everything is falling apart. I'm begging you. I know I don't deserve it, but I need your help. Please, Liam, I have nowhere else to turn. 9 years of silence. 9 years of nothing while we struggled and suffered, and now she needs my help. My first instinct was to block the number. But then I thought about all those nights holding Leah while she cried. All those days working my fingers raw just to keep us fed. All those years wondering what we did to make our own mother throw us away like garbage. I didn't respond right away. Let her panic for a while, sending more and more desperate messages. Then I wrote back one line. Who's this? She sent paragraphs about how sorry she was, how much she regretted what she did, how she thinks about us every day. Bullshit. Complete fucking bullshit. Turns out she needs something from me. Something only I can give her. And now I have leverage. Now I have power. She abandoned us with nothing but $200 and a shitty note. Left 2 kids to fend for themselves without a second thought. And now she wants me to save her. I've spent 9 years building a life from the ashes she left us in. Making sure Leah had a chance at a normal life. And I've spent 4 days planning exactly how I'm going to make her feel every bit of pain we felt. Revenge isn't going to be quick. It's going to be calculated. It's going to hurt and I'm going to enjoy every fucking second of it. Part 2 coming soon. I need to calm down before I type anymore. My hands are still shaking, but now it's with anticipation, not anger. She has no idea what's coming. Update 1. A lot of you wanted to know more about what happened during those 9 years and exactly what my mom, I'll just call her Norma from now on because that's her name and she doesn't deserve the title of mom, is asking for. So, here we go. Those first few months after being abandoned were a fucking nightmare. The social worker who finally found us, Miss Keller, was actually decent. She tried to keep us together, but the system is beyond broken. We got placed with the Richardsons first. They had 3 other foster kids already and barely noticed we existed. The food was okay, but the oldest foster kid, this 16-year-old named Tyler, kept stealing my shit and threatening Leah. I got into a fight with him 2 weeks in when I caught him going through Leah's backpack. Broke his nose. The Richardsons called our social worker that night and we were out by morning. Miss Keller gave me this whole lecture about controlling my temper while driving us to the next place. But I could tell she wasn't that mad. She knew I was just protecting Leah. The next family, the Coopers, were weird as hell. Super religious. Made us go to church 3 times a week. They wouldn't let Leah wear shorts even though it was summer and like 95 degrees. Mr. Cooper would check our phones every night. The social worker had helped us get these ancient flip phones for emergencies. One night, he found a meme one of my school friends had sent that had the word ass in it and lost his mind. Took the phone away for a month. We lasted 4 months there before they decided we were too difficult to discipline. Their loss. The third place was actually not terrible. Single foster mom named Diane who had grown kids of her own. She worked nights as a nurse, so she wasn't around much, but she made sure we had food and left us alone mostly. The whole time I kept working. Dishwashing job turned into bussing tables, then waiting tables at the same restaurant. Frank, the owner, was the closest thing to a father figure I'd had. He'd slip me extra food to take home to Leah and sometimes would let me work extra hours when we needed money for school stuff. He'd been in foster care himself as a kid, so he got it. School was whatever. I didn't have time for friends or sports or any of that normal teenage shit. I went to classes, worked, and made sure Leah was okay. My grades were decent enough to graduate, and that's all I cared about. Leah, though she's smart as hell. Even with all the trauma, she kept a 4.0. Teachers loved her. When I was 16, I finally learned why our dad was in prison. Miss Keller helped me access some records. Turns out his name was Donald Murray. We had our mom's last name, Wilson. He robbed a bank, shot a guard who survived, but was permanently disabled. Dad had a history of drug problems and petty crimes that escalated. The funny thing, in all those years, Norma never once mentioned him to us. We grew up thinking he just left before I was born. Finding out he was an actual violent criminal was weird. I didn't feel anything about it. Really can't miss someone you never knew. The worst part of those years was watching what it did to Leah. She had nightmares almost every night for the first year. Would wake up crying, calling for Norma. She'd get these anxiety attacks in school when other kids talked about their moms. One time in 7th grade, they had a mother-daughter event and she had a complete breakdown in the bathroom. I got called out of my own class to come get her. For her 13th birthday, I saved up and got her this silver bracelet. Nothing fancy, just something that was hers. You know, something permanent when everything else in our lives kept changing. She still wears it. When I turned 17, I started looking into what it would take to get custody of Leah when I turned 18. I talked to Miss Keller about it, and she was straight with me. It would be hard as hell. I'd need a stable job, an apartment, proof I could support her. So, I dropped out, got my GED, and started working full-time. Took a second job stocking shelves at night. Saved every fucking penny. The day I turned 18, I had almost $7,000 saved up. Found this tiny one-bedroom apartment in a kind of sketchy area, but it was clean, and the landlord didn't ask too many questions when I paid 3 months rent up front in cash. The custody battle was brutal. Went on for almost 6 months. The state didn't want to release Leah to me. Kept saying she was better off in the system. I had to prove I could provide a stable home, that I had income, that I could handle her school stuff. My boss, Frank, testified for me. So did Diane, our last foster mom, and Miss Keller. The judge was this older guy who actually listened when I explained everything we'd been through. Finally got custody when I was 18 and a half. That first night in our own place, just me and Leah, was the first time I felt like I could breathe in years. We got pizza and watched movies on this tiny laptop I'd bought secondhand. She fell asleep on the couch and I just sat there watching her thinking we might actually be okay. The next couple years were tough but stable. I worked my ass off. Leah finished high school with honors. Got a partial scholarship to community college. We moved to a slightly better 2-bedroom apartment when she was 17. I bought a used Kia that only broke down every other month instead of weekly. Leah still had issues though. Trust problems, anxiety. She'd get attached to friends too quickly, then push them away before they could leave her. Started seeing a therapist at her college, free for students. That helped a lot. She's been dating this guy, Ryan, for almost a year now. First relationship that's lasted more than a few weeks. He's decent, treats her well. I made it very clear what would happen if he hurt her. And me, I haven't had time for much of a life. Few casual relationships, nothing serious. Work, sleep, make sure bills are paid, got promoted a few times, make decent money now, enough that Leah doesn't have to work while she's in school, though she insists on her weekend job at the campus bookstore. We never heard a word from Norma. Not when I turned 18. Not when Leah graduated high school. Not when I ended up in the ER with appendicitis 2 years ago and almost died because I ignored the pain too long. Didn't have insurance. Then 4 days ago, my phone explodes with messages. I already told you about the first ones, all caps, begging me to respond. After my cold, who is this? Reply. The floodgates opened. Here's some of what she sent. I've been taking screenshots of everything. Liam, it's your mother. I know I don't deserve to call myself that. I know what I did was unforgivable, but I'm desperate. I've thought about you and Leah every single day. I have your pictures in my wallet. I've kept track of you online when I could. I know Leah's in college. I'm so proud of both of you. This one made me laugh out loud. I was in a terrible place when I left you. Your father's arrest destroyed me. I was using drugs, hanging with the wrong people. I wasn't thinking straight. I convinced myself you'd be better off without me. I've been clean for 8 years. I'm married now. I have a stepson. I've built a good life. I've been too ashamed to reach out. I need your help. It's about your father. He died in prison last month. There's an inheritance issue. I need you to sign some papers. Please just call me, please. I can't access any of the money without your signature. I'll split it with you. I swear I'm behind on mortgage payments. My husband lost his job. My stepson is starting college. Please, Liam. With each message I got more pissed off. She kept tabs on us online. Never once reached out until she needed something. Has a fucking stepson she's apparently a real mother to. And now wants me to bail her out. I didn't respond to any of these messages. Just let her keep sending them, getting more desperate. After about 30 messages with no response, she started sending pictures. Her with some balding guy, husband I guess. Her with a teenage boy who looks about 17. The house. Nice suburban place with a fucking pool in the backyard. Their family dog. Some expensive-looking retriever. She has a whole new family, a whole new life. One that apparently she's capable of not abandoning when things get tough. I did some digging, found her on Facebook, and her profile is Norma Jenkins now. Took her husband's name, lives in Tampa. Her profile is mostly private, but I could see enough. Posts about her amazing son graduating high school, the step-kid, beach vacations, anniversary dinners, normal family shit that we never got. Her husband, Robert Jenkins, has a more public profile. He owns some kind of boat repair business that went under last year, according to some posts. They're selling their house. It's listed online for $380,000, but has been on the market for months with price reductions. The most interesting thing, I found a news article from about a month ago. Former bank robber Donald Murray dies in prison. There was a small mention that he left behind ex-wife Norma and 2 estranged children. The article mentioned something about his mother, our grandmother we never knew, having left him property and some kind of trust. So, that's what this is about. Money. Fucking money. She abandoned us. Left us to fend for ourselves, built a whole new perfect family, and now she wants to play the mother card because she needs cash. After 2 days of her increasingly desperate messages, I finally called the number. I wanted to hear her voice. Wanted to know if I'd recognize it after 9 years. She answered on the first ring. Liam. Oh my God, Liam. Her voice was exactly the same. That's what got me. 9 years and she sounded exactly the same as the day she walked out that motel door. I didn't say anything for a few seconds, just listened to her breathing. Then I asked her what she wanted exactly. She started crying, saying how sorry she was, how much she'd changed, how she thinks about us every day. I cut her off, told her to explain about Dad's inheritance, or I was hanging up. The story came out between sobs. Dad's mother died a year ago, left a house worth about $230,000 and some land worth maybe $100,000 more. Dad was the only heir, but since he was in prison, everything went into a trust. When he died last month, the trust was supposed to transfer to his legal family, which apparently includes us and Norma, since they never actually divorced. Here's the kicker. Norma can't access any of it without signatures from both surviving children, me and Leah. The trustee, some lawyer in Dad's hometown, is apparently strict as hell and by the book. She's tried everything to get around it, but no dice. I asked her why she needs the money so badly. More crying. Husband's business failed. They're underwater on their mortgage. Stepson needs college tuition. Blah blah blah. Their perfect little life is falling apart. And suddenly she remembers she has 2 other kids. I told her I'd think about it. Then I hung up while she was mid-sentence, begging me not to go. I haven't told Leah yet. She's doing really well right now. Her classes are going great. Things with Ryan are good. I don't want to drop this bomb on her life, but I know I'll have to tell her soon. Here's where I am now. I have leverage. Real leverage. For the first time in 9 years, I have something Norma desperately needs. And I'm going to make her suffer for every tear Leah cried waiting by that motel window. For every night I lay awake wondering if we'd end up on the street. For every fucking sacrifice I made to keep us alive and together. I've already called the trustee's office, left a message saying, I'm Donald Murray's son, and I understand there's an inheritance matter to discuss. I'm meeting with a lawyer tomorrow to understand my options. This isn't just about money. I don't even care about the money. This is about making Norma feel a fraction of the helplessness and desperation we felt when she drove away from that motel. I'm not telling her that, though. I'm letting her think there's hope. I'm making her dance like our lives depended on her goodwill for all those years. Part 3 coming after I meet with the lawyer. Trust me, this is just getting started. Update 2. Okay, so I know I left you guys hanging for a few days. Shit's been intense. I wasn't even sure I was going to update because this has all gotten way more complicated than I expected, but typing it out helps me process everything. Plus, some of your comments actually gave me decent ideas for dealing with Norma. Special shout out to you Revenge Served Cold for the trust fund suggestion. So, the meeting with the lawyer, the guy's name is Mike Daniels. Found him through a free legal clinic. Showed up to his office in this rundown strip mall, thinking this would be some quick 30-minute consult, but we ended up talking for almost 2 hours. Dude looks like he's about 12, but apparently specializes in estate and family law. First thing he did was look up the public records on my dad's estate. Turns out Norma wasn't bullshitting about that part. Donald Murray did inherit property from his mother, which was held in trust while he was in prison. And now that he's dead, it goes to his legal heirs, which includes me, Leah, and technically Norma since they never divorced. But here's where it gets interesting. The trustee, some lawyer named Harrington in my dad's hometown in Kentucky, has complete discretion over how the assets get distributed. The only requirement is that all legal heirs have to sign off on whatever plan is proposed. Basically, I have veto power. If I don't sign, Norma gets nothing. But it's not that simple. If I refuse to cooperate at all, the trustee can petition the court to force a resolution, which could drag on for years with legal fees eating up the inheritance. According to Mike, the smartest move is to engage with the process, but use my leverage strategically. When I explained the whole abandonment situation, Mike got really quiet for a minute. Then he asked if I had any documentation of Norma leaving us. The note, maybe, police reports, CPS records. I wish I'd kept that note. I had it for years, but it got lost in one of our many moves. But we do have the CPS and foster care records. Mike said those could be extremely valuable if I wanted to challenge Norma's right to any of the inheritance based on parental abandonment. After the lawyer, I knew I had to tell Leah. I've never kept anything important from her, and this was too big to hide. So, I picked her up from her afternoon class, and we went to this little park we used to go to when we first got our own place. It's nothing special, just some benches and a few trees, but it was our spot when we needed to get out of our cramped apartment. I told her everything, showed her the messages from Norma. At first, she just sat there completely still, staring at my phone. Then she started shaking, not crying, just trembling. I put my arm around her, but she pushed it away and stood up, started pacing back and forth, muttering under her breath. When she finally looked at me, her eyes were so cold, I barely recognized her. She asked to see the pictures Norma had sent of her new family. I showed her. She zoomed in on the stepson. This kid living the life we should have had. Said he looked like a typical rich brat who'd never had to worry about anything in his life. Then she asked what I was planning to do. I started explaining about the lawyer in the trust, but she cut me off. Said she didn't care about any of that. She wanted to know if I was going to let Norma back into our lives. I told her hell no. This wasn't about reconciliation. This was about making Norma suffer like we did. Leah smiled then. Not her usual smile, something harder, sharper. She said good because she'd spent too many years of therapy working through what Norma did to us. And she wasn't about to let her waltz back in and fuck everything up again just because she needed money. Then Leah surprised me. She pulled out her phone and started typing furiously. I asked what she was doing and she showed me. She was looking up Norma's address in Tampa. Had already found the real estate listing for their house. Was scrolling through pictures of the inside. Look at this shit, Liam. Granite countertops, pool in the backyard, home theater in the basement. While we were eating ramen for the 5th night in a row, she was living like this. That night, we stayed up until 3 a.m. researching. Found everything we could about Norma's new life. Her husband Robert's business failure wasn't just bad luck. According to some reviews in a small article in a local business journal, he'd mismanaged the company, took on too much debt, and screwed over some suppliers who eventually sued him. They'd been living beyond their means for years. Norma's been working at some spa place doing reception. Robert's been unemployed for about 8 months. Their house has been on the market for 6 months with 3 price reductions. And their precious stepson got accepted to some private college that costs like $50,000 a year. Around 1 a.m., Norma texted again. Liam, please. The bank is threatening foreclosure. I don't know what else to do. I'm begging you. We can talk about what happened. I'll explain everything. I didn't respond. Let her stew. The next morning, I called the trustee, Mr. Harrington. Got his voicemail, left a message identifying myself as Donald Murray's son and asking for details about the estate. He called back that afternoon. Harrington sounds like he's about 80 years old. Talks slow, lots of legal jargon, but he confirmed everything: the house, the land, the trust. Said he'd been dealing with Norma for weeks and was getting rather tired of her hysterics. His exact words: asked if I could come to Kentucky to meet in person and discuss options. I took a couple days off work, told Leah I'd be back in 2 days, and drove the 6 hours to this tiny town called Millfield where my dad grew up. It's like something out of a country music video. One main street. Everybody knows everybody. Harrington's office is in this ancient building on Main Street. Wood paneling, law books everywhere, secretary who looks as old as he is. The guy himself is exactly what you'd expect. White hair, bow tie, glasses on a chain, but sharp as hell. I sat down and before I could even get into my whole story, he held up his hand and said he'd like to show me something. Pulled out a file with my dad's name on it. Inside was a letter from my dad to me and Leah. Written 3 years ago when he knew he was sick. Apparently, he had heart problems for years before he died. The letter was simple. He knew he'd been a terrible father, not there for us at all. Said he'd made mistakes that couldn't be fixed. But he wanted us to have his mother's property because we deserved some kind of stability after everything. There was no mention of Norma, nothing about sharing with her or taking care of her, just us. I asked Harrington if Norma knew about this letter. He said no. Dad had specified it was only to be shown to his children after his death. Then he asked me the same question Mike had. Did I have proof of abandonment? I explained everything: the motel, the note, the years in foster care. Harrington took detailed notes, then leaned back in his chair. He explained that legally Norma has some claim as the surviving ex-spouse who never formally divorced Donald, but her claim could be significantly reduced or eliminated if I could prove abandonment and failure to provide support for minor children. Then he showed me the property. The house is nothing special. Old farmhouse that needs work, but the land is the real asset. 40 acres, part of it zoned commercial because it fronts the highway. Developers have been trying to buy it for years. By the time I left Harrington's office, we had a plan. A legal by-the-book plan that would destroy Norma financially while giving Leah and me everything we're entitled to. The drive back gave me time to think. Leah called halfway through, asked how it went. I told her about the letter, about the property. She was quiet for a minute, then asked if I thought our dad had really changed, if he'd really felt bad about not being there for us. I said I didn't know. Probably not. People like that don't change. But it didn't matter. His guilt was useful to us now. When I got home, Leah was waiting with a surprise. She dug deeper into Norma's social media, created a fake profile, and friended some of Norma's friends. Found out that Norma had been telling people for years that her first 2 children had died in a car accident. That's why she left the state, according to her sob story. Too many painful memories. The rage I felt in that moment, I can't even describe it. She didn't just abandon us. She erased us. Killed us off in her narrative so she wouldn't have to explain to her new perfect family why she ditched her old one. That night, Norma called again, left a voicemail saying the bank had given them 30 days before starting foreclosure. Begged me to just talk to the trustee, sign whatever needed signing, said she'd make it right with us. I texted back one word, tomorrow. She responded instantly, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Can we talk on the phone? I want to explain everything. I wrote back, no phone. I'll drive to Tampa. We'll talk in person. She sent her address immediately. Said she'd be there all day. Just let her know when I'd arrive. I called Mike the lawyer again, explained what I'd learned from Harrington. He helped me draft a document, an agreement that would need to be signed before I'd consider signing anything from the trustee. The terms were simple but brutal. Norma acknowledges in writing that she abandoned 2 minor children without proper support or guardianship. She waives all rights to any portion of Donald Murray's estate. She pays restitution for the cost of our care from age 14 and 11 to 18, a calculated amount of $158,000. Mike helped me figure this out based on standard foster care payments and child support guidelines. She signs an agreement never to contact us again after the estate is settled unless specifically invited to do so. In exchange, we wouldn't pursue criminal charges for child abandonment. Statute of limitations is probably up anyway, but she doesn't need to know that and wouldn't sue her civilly for the abandonment, which we probably could. Leah and I spent hours planning what to say, how to play it. She wanted to come with me, almost got violent when I suggested she stay behind, but I finally convinced her that the first meeting should be just me, get Norma comfortable, get her to sign the agreement, then bring Leah in for the final confrontation. The night before I left for Tampa, Norma sent a photo. Her husband and the stepson, all smiling in front of their house. We can't wait to see you tomorrow. The whole family is excited to finally meet you. The fucking nerve. The whole family. Finally meet me. Like I'm some distant relative they've always wanted to know. Not the son she dumped like garbage and pretended was dead. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat on the balcony of our apartment watching the cars go by, thinking about that motel room. The blood stains on the wall, the roaches, Leah crying herself to sleep every night, the hunger, the fear, the exhaustion of trying to be both brother and parent when I was just a kid myself. In the morning, I packed a small bag, printed out the agreement Mike had drafted, and got in my car. 8-hour drive to Tampa, 8 hours to prepare for facing the woman who destroyed our childhood. Leah hugged me before I left, whispered that whatever happened, we were still a family, the one we'd built ourselves. Then she handed me a small box. Inside was the silver bracelet I'd given her for her 13th birthday. Show her what real family does, she said. Real family stays. I'm writing this from a hotel in Tampa. Tomorrow morning, I'm driving to Norma's house. I have the agreement in my bag, Leah's bracelet in my pocket, and 9 years of rage in my heart. Part 4 will be the confrontation. Wish me luck, Reddit. After 9 years, Norma Jenkins is about to face the consequences of abandoning her children. Final update. The last few days have been absolute insanity. I'm still processing everything that happened, so sorry if this post jumps around a bit. I woke up in that Tampa hotel at like 5 a.m. couldn't get back to sleep. Kept checking and double-checking the paperwork Mike had prepared, making sure everything was airtight. Couldn't eat anything. Kept feeling Leah's bracelet in my pocket like some kind of talisman. Around 9:30, I texted Norma that I'd be there at 10 o'clock. She responded immediately with a bunch of excited emojis and "we can't wait to see you." We made my skin crawl. The GPS took me to this subdivision called Palmetto Estates or some shit like that. Cookie-cutter houses with perfect lawns. The kind of place where HOA Nazis measure your grass with rulers. Norma's house was at the end of a cul-de-sac. 2-story with a 3-car garage. Obvious pool in the back. Looked like it probably cost $500,000 before the housing crash. I sat in my car for maybe 5 minutes just staring at the house, trying to imagine Norma living there while Leah and I ate expired food from the dollar store. 9 years of this life while we struggled through foster care and poverty. Before I could even knock, the door flew open and there she was. Norma looked different but also exactly the same. Dyed blonde hair instead of brown. More wrinkles, expensive clothes, but the same eyes, same nervous smile. She reached for me like she was going to hug me and I just stepped back. Her arms dropped awkwardly. She led me inside, talking a mile a minute about how she couldn't believe I was really there. How grown up I looked. How she'd thought about this moment for years. The house was exactly what I expected. Granite countertops, stainless appliances, tasteful beige everything. Family photos everywhere. Happy, smiling pictures of her with Robert and the stepson. Vacations, Christmases, birthdays. 9 years of a life that didn't include us. Robert was waiting in the living room. Balding guy, probably mid-40s, soft around the middle, wearing a golf shirt like he was about to hit the country club. He shook my hand too enthusiastically. Said he'd heard so much about me. Complete bullshit. Obviously, the stepson wasn't there. Norma explained he was at a friend's house, would be back later. I was relieved. This wasn't about him. Norma had prepared a whole fucking spread. Coffee, pastries, fruit, like this was some kind of happy family reunion. I didn't touch any of it, just sat on the edge of the couch, feeling the weight of the paperwork in my bag. The small talk was excruciating. Norma kept asking about my job, where I lived, what I liked to do. I gave one-word answers. Robert tried to break the tension with jokes that fell flat. I let the awkwardness build until I couldn't stand it anymore. Finally, I pulled out the folder with the agreement, told them I'd spoken with the trustee and understood the situation with the inheritance. Norma's face lit up, relief washing over her. She started thanking me, saying she knew I'd understand, that blood was thicker than water. That's when I cut her off. I told her I knew she'd been telling people that Leah and I were dead. Hit her with it point blank, watching her face for the reaction. She went pale. Robert looked confused. Asked what I was talking about. Seems like he didn't know that part of the story. Norma tried to stammer out an explanation, said it was too painful to explain the real situation, that it was easier to say we'd died than to admit what she'd done. Robert was staring at her now. Clearly hearing this for the first time, I pushed forward, asked her to explain exactly what she'd done. Since Robert seemed confused, she hesitated, looked at him nervously. I pulled out my phone, showed them both the screenshots I'd taken of her social media posts about her tragic loss. Robert asked Norma what the hell was going on. His voice had this edge to it I hadn't heard before. Norma started crying. Those manipulative tears I remembered from childhood. Said she'd made mistakes, that she was a different person now. I laughed, couldn't help it. Then I laid it all out. The motel, the $200, the note, everything. Watching Robert's face as he realized the woman he married had abandoned her children and pretended they were dead. He kept looking between us like he was trying to figure out which one of us was lying. Norma switched tactics, then started talking about how she'd been using drugs. How Donald's arrest had destroyed her. How she wasn't thinking clearly. Said she'd planned to come back for us but was afraid of getting arrested. Every excuse in the book. I pulled out the agreement, told her if she wanted any chance of getting a dime from the inheritance. She needed to sign it, explain the terms, her written admission of abandonment, waiving rights to the estate, the $158,000 in restitution, agreement to never contact us again. Robert grabbed the papers, started reading. His face got redder with each page. He asked if this was some kind of joke. I told him it wasn't, and if they didn't sign, I'd make sure the trust got tied up in court for years until legal fees ate up every penny. Norma was full-on sobbing now, saying she couldn't possibly pay that kind of money, that they were already losing the house, that her son's college future depended on this inheritance. I reminded her that he wasn't her only son, that she had 2 children she'd thrown away like trash. Robert seemed genuinely shocked, asked how she could have done something like that. She turned on him then, saying he didn't understand the pressure she'd been under, how hard it had been to be a single mother with a husband in prison, started bringing up his business failures, how he'd put them in this financial mess. While they argued, my phone buzzed. Text from Leah. I'm outside. This wasn't the plan. She was supposed to wait until I called her, let her know it was time to come down from wherever she was staying nearby. But apparently, she'd driven down overnight, followed the address I'd sent her. I texted back, wait 5 minutes, then come in. The argument between Norma and Robert was getting heated. He kept saying she'd lied to him for their entire relationship. She was throwing his business failure in his face. I just sat there watching them tear into each other, feeling nothing but cold satisfaction. Then the doorbell rang. Norma went to answer it, probably relieved for the interruption. And there was Leah, my little sister, standing tall, looking Norma right in the eyes for the first time in 9 years. Norma made this weird choking sound, reached for Leah like she had for me. Leah just walked past her into the house, came and stood next to me. The look on Norma's face, seeing both her abandoned children standing in her perfect living room, was everything I'd hoped for. She kept saying Leah's name, like she couldn't believe she was real. Leah didn't say a word, just stared at her. Robert had gone quiet, watching this all unfold. He finally asked if Leah was who he thought she was. She introduced herself formally, like she was at a job interview. Said she was Norma's daughter, the one she'd left in a motel when she was 11 years old. The next hour was intense. Leah had brought her own evidence, printouts of her therapy records detailing the abandonment trauma, her school records showing the disruption, photos of us in the foster homes. She laid them out on the coffee table one by one, narrating each in a calm, clinical voice that was somehow more devastating than if she'd been screaming. Norma kept trying to touch her to explain. Leah just moved away each time, continuing her methodical presentation of the evidence of our lives after abandonment. Robert finally spoke up, asked Norma if she was planning to sign the agreement. She looked panicked, said they needed that money, that they'd lose everything. He shook his head, said he didn't recognize the person he'd married, grabbed his keys, and walked out. The front door slammed so hard the family photos on the wall rattled. With Robert gone, Norma changed. The tears dried up instantly. She looked at us with this cold calculation I remembered from childhood. Said we were trying to ruin her life. That we owed her for giving birth to us for the years she'd raised us before the abandonment. Said the inheritance should be hers because she'd been married to Donald. Had put up with his criminal behavior. Leah finally lost her cool. Asked how Norma could possibly think she deserved anything from us. How she could sleep at night knowing what she'd done. Norma slapped her. Just like that. Out of nowhere, Leah's head snapped to the side. A red mark blooming on her cheek. I was between them in an instant, pushing Norma back, told her if she touched my sister again, the only inheritance she'd get would be a lawsuit. Leah grabbed my arm, said it was okay. She touched her cheek, looked at Norma, and said the slap was nothing compared to the years of pain she'd caused us. Norma switched tactics again, begged us to understand her position, said if we just signed the paperwork for the inheritance, she'd give us half. Said we could be a family again, that she'd make it up to us. Leah pulled out her phone, hit record, asked Norma to repeat what she just said about abandoning us. Norma realized she was being recorded, and lunged for the phone. I blocked her, told her that her options were simple. Sign our agreement or get nothing. She called us ungrateful brats. Said we'd always been difficult, that's why she'd left. That Donald had turned us against her. Every awful thing she could think of, she said. 9 years of built-up resentment pouring out. I pulled out Leah's silver bracelet. Told Norma how I'd worked extra shifts washing dishes just to buy it for Leah's 13th birthday. How we'd taken care of each other while she was playing happy family with her new husband and stepson. How we'd never needed her and never would again. Leah was still recording, asked Norma one more time if she was going to sign the agreement. Norma spat that we could go to hell, that no judge would side with us over a mother. That's when I played my trump card, called Mr. Harrington on speakerphone. He answered on the second ring and I explained the situation. Asked him to tell Norma exactly what would happen if I contested her claim to the inheritance based on abandonment. The old lawyer's voice was perfectly calm as he explained that Norma's claim was already tenuous and with documented evidence of abandonment, she'd likely receive nothing, that the process could take years if contested, during which time no one would receive anything. that in his professional opinion, signing our agreement was her best option. Norma screamed at the phone, called Harrington a crook. He just waited until she ran out of steam, then said he'd be sending a formal letter outlining the situation, and hung up. The fight went out of her then. She sank onto the couch, staring at nothing. Asked in this small voice what we wanted from her, Leah answered for both of us. Justice. Norma signed the agreement an hour later. Every page, including the detailed admission of abandonment. Her hand was shaking, but she signed. Leah witnessed it, still recording everything. As we were leaving, Norma asked if we'd ever forgive her. If there was any chance of reconciliation in the future, Leah answered again. You died to us the day you drove away from that motel. Stay dead. We left her sitting in her perfect house that she was about to lose, surrounded by photos of a family built on lies. The trustee called me the next day, said Norma had contacted him, tried to claim the agreement was signed under duress. He'd reminded her that the recording Leah had sent him showed otherwise and that contesting it would only delay the inevitable. She'd backed down. The estate is being processed now. The house and land will be sold with proceeds split between Leah and me. Harrington estimates we'll each get around $150,000 after taxes and fees. Norma gets nothing. Robert filed for divorce 3 days after our visit. Apparently, finding out your wife abandoned her children and pretended they were dead is a deal breaker. Leah and I drove back together, talked more in those 8 hours than we had in months, about the inheritance, about what it meant, about Norma and whether the revenge had been enough. For me, it was never about the money. It was about making her face what she'd done. About taking away her perfect narrative and forcing her to confront the reality of her choices. The money is just a bonus, one that will help Leah finish school without debt. Help us build the lives we've fought so hard for. We've decided to use part of the inheritance to set up small trust funds for kids aging out of foster care in our area. The kind of help we never got. Not enough to solve all their problems, but maybe enough to give them a fighting chance. As for Norma, we haven't heard from her since that day. Her Facebook page disappeared. According to the realtor listing, yeah, I still check. Their house sold for way below asking price. Where she is now, I don't know. Don't care, honestly. The trustee sent us copies of all the paperwork last week. Included was the original letter from our dad. I read it again, trying to feel something for this man I never knew. The only thing I felt was gratitude that his final act gave us a weapon against the woman who abandoned us. 9 years ago, Norma threw $200 on a motel bed and told 2 children to figure it out. We did. We figured out how to survive, how to stay together, how to build lives from nothing. And when she came crawling back needing our help, we figured out how to make her pay for what she'd done. Sometimes I think about that 14-year-old kid staying awake all night in that roach motel to protect his sister. I wish I could tell him that someday he'd win. That someday the woman who threw them away would beg for their help and he'd have the power to say no. Leah's doing well. The therapist says confronting Norma gave her closure she never thought she'd get. She still wears that silver bracelet every day. As for me, I'm sleeping better than I have in years. The anger that's been my constant companion since that day at the motel is finally quiet. Not gone, but quiet. We made it. Not because of Norma or Donald, but in spite of them. We built our own family, just the 2 of us. And that's worth more than any inheritance could ever be. Thanks for letting me share this story, Reddit. Turns out revenge doesn't fix everything.